She thought the cold billionaire CEO hated her, not knowing he was obsessed with her all along. "They want someone to blame," he said without turning. Rain streaking down the windows of his penthouse. "The board, the shareholders, the press. They need a sacrifice." My throat tightened as I realized what he meant. "And that's me. That's what they think." Now he faced me, and the intensity in those ice-blue eyes made my breath catch. "They're wrong." He crossed the room with purpose, stopping closer to me than he ever had before. "I've spent weeks trying to keep my distance from you, trying to maintain the boundaries I've built around myself since." He broke off. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I won't let them destroy you for something you had no part in." "I don't understand." "Because trusting you meant acknowledging what was happening. What I felt every time you walked into a room." His voice dropped lower. "What I still feel. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be hated by someone for no apparent reason? To have your every move scrutinized, your every success diminished? What if that hatred was actually masking something else entirely? Something that could change everything? If you've ever misjudged someone, or been misjudged yourself, this story will resonate deep in your soul. Give this video a like if you believe appearances can be deceiving, and sometimes what looks like contempt is actually something far more complex. I'm Mr. Harrison, and today I'm sharing the remarkable story of Claire Bennett and Liam Harrington. A tale of misconceptions, vulnerability, and the walls we build to protect ourselves from the very thing we desire most. The first time Claire Bennett walked into the gleaming headquarters of Harrington and Company, she felt like she was entering a fortress of glass and steel rather than an office building. Everything about the place exuded power and precision, from the minimalist lobby with its soaring ceilings to the hushed efficiency of the employees who moved through the space with purpose. 15th floor, the security guard said after checking her credentials. "Mr. Harrington's executive assistant will meet you there." Claire smoothed down her carefully chosen navy suit and tried to calm the flutter in her stomach. Landing the position of Strategic Communications Director at one of the country's most prestigious financial firms was the career break she'd been working toward for years. She wouldn't let nerves undermine this moment. The elevator doors opened to reveal a striking woman with a sleek bob and impeccable posture. "Ms. Bennett? I'm Vivian Park, Mr. Harrington's executive assistant. He's waiting for you." No welcome coffee, no office tour, no easing in. Claire had heard rumors about Liam Harrington's impatience, but experiencing it firsthand was another matter entirely. Vivian led her through a maze of glass-walled offices where analysts and executives worked in focused silence. At the end of the corridor stood a set of double doors, the only wooden doors in the otherwise transparent space. "He prefers brevity," Vivian murmured before knocking. "Direct answers. No unnecessary elaboration." Before Claire could respond, a deep voice called, "Enter." Liam Harrington stood with his back to the door, gazing out floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of the city. He didn't turn when they entered. "Your new communications director, sir," Vivian announced. "Thank you, Vivian. That will be all." When he finally turned, Claire understood why junior employees called him the Iceman behind his back. Tall and imposing in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, Liam Harrington possessed the kind of cold, classical handsomeness that belonged on ancient coins. Strong jaw, straight nose, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to cut through pretense like lasers. His dark hair was immaculately styled, not a strand out of place. "Ms. Bennett." He didn't offer his hand. "Your resume is impressive. Your actual capabilities remain to be seen." Claire had prepared for many first-day scenarios, but open skepticism wasn't among them. Still, she met his gaze directly. "I appreciate the opportunity to demonstrate those capabilities, Mr. Harrington." Something flickered across his face, surprise perhaps, before his expression hardened again. "We're announcing the Meridian acquisition next week. The press has been speculating for months. I need a strategy that controls the narrative without revealing our long-term intentions. No pleasantries, no onboarding process, just straight to work." "I've studied the Meridian situation," Claire replied, grateful for her thorough preparation. "I have several approaches we could consider, depending on your priorities." For the next 20 minutes, she outlined potential communication strategies, while Liam listened in silence, his expression giving nothing away. When she finished, he simply nodded. Work with Vivian to access the necessary files. I expect a detailed plan on my desk by tomorrow morning. He turned back to the window, a clear dismissal. As Claire reached the door, his voice stopped her. Ms. Bennett. Yes, Mr. Harrington? The blue folder on your desk contains information not included in the public briefing. Read it carefully. And Ms. Bennett? Don't disappoint me. The words hung in the air like a threat. That night, Claire worked until 2 a.m. in her small apartment, surrounded by research materials and coffee cups. The blue folder had contained sensitive financial projections that painted the Meridian acquisition in a complex light. Highly profitable but with significant short-term risks. By morning, she had crafted a communication strategy that acknowledged the challenges while emphasizing the long-term benefits, positioning Harrington and company as visionaries willing to weather temporary turbulence for extraordinary gains. When she placed the report on Liam's desk at 7:30 a.m., she was exhausted but confident. He didn't look up from his computer. I'll review it when I have time. 3 hours later, Vivian appeared at Claire's new office. He wants to see you. Claire steeled herself, expecting criticism. When she entered Liam's office, he was reading her report, his expression unreadable. This approach, he said without preamble, acknowledging the short-term volatility rather than hiding it. Explain your reasoning. Transparency builds trust, Claire replied. If we control the narrative about the challenges, we position ourselves as forthright and confident. If we hide them and they emerge anyway, we appear deceptive and insecure. Liam studied her for a long moment. Implement it. Exactly as written. It wasn't praise, but it was approval. Claire nodded and turned to leave. Ms. Bennett. She paused at the door. You didn't disappoint me. Coming from Liam Harrington, it felt like the highest compliment. The Meridian announcement went flawlessly. The financial press praised Harrington and Company's refreshing candor and strategic foresight. The stock price dipped slightly as expected, then rebounded stronger than before. Claire should have been celebrating this early success, but instead, she found herself increasingly confused by her boss's behavior. By her third week, Claire had established a reputation for competence and calm under pressure. She had also confirmed that Liam Harrington's frosty demeanor wasn't reserved for newcomers. It was his default setting with everyone. Everyone except her. With others, he was merely cold. With Claire, he seemed actively displeased, critiquing her work with surgical precision, questioning her decisions in front of colleagues, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. During the weekly executive meeting, Liam dismantled her media response plan for a minor crisis, point by point, his voice cutting through her presentation like ice. This approach lacks conviction, he said, his blue eyes fixed on her. It's reactive rather than authoritative. Harrington and Company doesn't explain itself. We define the conversation. Claire felt her cheeks flush as the other executives shifted uncomfortably. The data suggests that in this particular situation, a more measured response. I'm not interested in measured, Ms. Bennett. I'm interested in decisive. Later that day, Claire found herself confiding in Vivian, the only person who seemed to understand the strange dynamics at play. I don't understand, she said after recounting the meeting. My work is solid. The Meridian announcement was handled flawlessly. Why does he seem to hate me? Vivian glanced around before responding quietly. He doesn't hate you. That's the problem. What does that mean? In the 3 years I've worked for him, I've never seen him react to anyone the way he reacts to you. He's disturbed by you. Disturbed? That's hardly flattering. Mr. Harrington values control above all else, especially self-control. You challenge that somehow. Vivian's phone buzzed. He's asking for you. Try not to take it personally. But how could she not? Every interaction with Liam felt intensely personal, charged with an undercurrent she couldn't identify. When she entered his office, he was standing in his usual position by the window. The Westlake presentation, he said without preamble. It needs to be completely redone. Claire took a steadying breath. May I ask why? The team approved the final version yesterday. The team isn't responsible for this company's reputation. I am. He turned, fixing her with that penetrating gaze. The approach is too conservative. Westlake needs to understand we're not just another option. We're their only viable choice. With respect, Mr. Harrington, aggressive positioning could backfire. Our research indicates. I didn't hire you for research. I hired you for results. He moved closer, close enough that she could detect the subtle scent of his cologne. Either deliver what I need or find another position. Something in his tone, a slight tremor beneath the ice, made Claire stand her ground instead of retreating. Is that what you want? For me to leave? The question hung between them, unexpectedly intimate. For a fraction of a second, Liam's mask slipped, revealing something raw and conflicted in his eyes. What I want, he said quietly, is irrelevant. What I need is a communication strategy that reflects the strength of this firm. By tomorrow morning. As Claire turned to leave, she caught his reflection in the glass, watching her with an expression that looked nothing like hatred. If you've ever felt that strange tension with someone, where their words say one thing but their eyes tell another story, hit that like button. And if you're curious to discover what was really behind Liam Harrington's cold facade, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. The most revealing part of Claire and Liam's story is still to come. That night, Claire worked on the Westlake presentation with a new perspective. Instead of completely adopting Liam's aggressive approach, she found a middle ground, bold and confident, but backed by substance rather than mere posturing. She emphasized Harrington and Company's unique strengths without dismissing the client's concerns. It was assertive without being arrogant, powerful without being pushy. When she sent the revised presentation to Liam at midnight, she didn't expect a response until morning. To her surprise, her phone buzzed almost immediately with an email containing just 2 words, "Much better." The Westlake meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon. Claire sat beside Liam at the massive conference table, acutely aware of his presence as he led the initial discussions. When it came time for her portion of the presentation, he nodded slightly, then leaned back to observe. Claire stood, feeling the weight of the moment. "Gentlemen, you've heard about Harrington and Company's impressive track record and capabilities. Now let me tell you why we're not just your best option. We're your only viable path forward." She delivered the presentation with quiet confidence, making eye contact with each Westlake executive. She didn't just recite facts and figures. She told a compelling story about their shared future, addressing concerns before they could be raised, painting a vision so clear and attainable that by the end, the Westlake CEO was leaning forward in his seat. "We don't typically make decisions this quickly," he said when she finished, "but I think we'd be fools to look elsewhere. Let's move forward." As they left the Westlake offices, Claire expected at least a nod of approval from Liam. Instead, he was already on his phone, discussing another matter as if the major victory they just secured was merely routine. The disconnect between the magnitude of their success and his apparent indifference left Claire feeling strangely hollow. The Westlake deal made headlines exactly as Claire had predicted. Her revised strategy had positioned Harrington and Company perfectly, and the client had signed a contract worth millions. The executive floor buzzed with excitement, everyone except Liam, who remained locked in his office. "He wants to see you," Vivian said, appearing at Claire's door late that afternoon. "And Claire? He's been on calls with the London office all morning. It's not a good day." Steeling herself, Claire knocked on Liam's door. When no answer came, she entered cautiously. He sat behind his desk, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. A tumbler of amber liquid sat untouched beside him. He looked up, and Claire was startled by the weariness in his face. "The Westlake coverage," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "It's exceptional." Claire blinked, unprepared for praise. "Thank you. You stood your ground. Against my explicit direction." He studied her with that unsettling intensity. "Most people don't. Most people aren't hired to give you their professional opinion. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Is that what you think your job is? To challenge me? Part of it. Yes. Liam rose and moved to the window, his sanctuary. Do you know why I hired you, Ms. Bennett? Because of my experience with financial communications? Because you were the only candidate who looked me in the eye throughout the entire interview. Everyone else looked away, intimidated or trying to please. He turned to face her. You didn't. The admission shifted something in the atmosphere between them. I'm not easily intimidated, Mr. Harrington. Liam, he said quietly. When we're alone, at least. Before Claire could process this unexpected intimacy, his phone rang. The moment shattered as he answered, his voice instantly returning to its customary crispness. Claire slipped out, her mind racing. For the first time, she'd glimpsed something beneath Liam Harrington's frost. Something human and vulnerable. Over the next few weeks, nothing and everything changed. On the surface, their professional relationship continued as before. Liam demanding excellence, Claire delivering it. But there were subtle shifts. Occasional moments when he called her Claire instead of Ms. Bennett. Brief instances when their eyes met and held a second too long. Rare occasions when she caught him watching her during meetings with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. You've made quite an impression, remarked Marcus Whitfield, the chief financial officer, after Claire successfully managed a potentially damaging leak about executive compensation. I haven't seen Liam this engaged in years. Engaged? Claire couldn't help but laugh. He barely acknowledges my existence most days. Marcus gave her a curious look. Is that what you think? Interesting. Before she could ask what he meant, they were interrupted by another executive, and the moment passed. But Marcus's words lingered in her mind, adding to her growing confusion about Liam Harrington and where she stood with him. That confusion only deepened the following week when Claire arrived early for a meeting to find Liam and Vivian in intense conversation outside his office. You can't keep doing this, Vivian was saying, her normally composed voice urgent. It's not fair to her or to yourself. I know what I'm doing, Liam replied, his tone clipped. Do you? Because from where I stand. Vivian stopped abruptly, noticing Claire approaching. We'll discuss this later, she murmured, then nodded politely to Claire before walking away. The meeting proceeded as normal, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she had been the subject of their conversation. What wasn't fair to her? What was Liam doing that concerned Vivian so much? The answers came sooner than she expected, and in the most unexpected way. The scandal broke on a rainy Tuesday. Claire arrived to find the office in chaos, reporters calling, and Vivian looking pale with worry. Financial irregularities in the Meridian deal, she explained hurriedly. Someone leaked internal documents suggesting we knew about problems with their Asian subsidiaries before the acquisition. Where's Liam? Emergency board meeting. But Claire, your name is on the communication strategy. The press is suggesting you helped cover up the issues. Claire felt the floor tilt beneath her. She had known nothing about any irregularities. The blue folder Liam had given her on her first day had contained nothing suspicious. But perception was reality in crisis communications. She knew that better than anyone. Show me what they're saying, she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. Vivian pulled up several financial news sites on her tablet. The headlines were devastating. Harrington and Company. Communications director implicated in Meridian cover-up. Bennett strategy questioned as Meridian irregularities surface. Harrington protégé at center of growing scandal. Protégé? Claire almost laughed at the absurdity. He can barely stand to be in the same room with me most days. That's not... Vivian began, then stopped herself. You should prepare a statement. The board will want to hear directly from you. Throughout the morning, Claire tried repeatedly to reach Liam, but he remained sequestered with the board. She drafted a statement asserting her lack of knowledge about any irregularities, while carefully avoiding throwing Liam or the company under the bus. It was a delicate balance, defending herself without appearing defensive, maintaining loyalty without accepting blame. By afternoon, the situation had deteriorated. The board was demanding accountability, shareholders were panicking, and Claire found herself isolated, colleagues suddenly distant. When security appeared to escort her to a meeting, she feared the worst. "Where are we going?" she asked as they bypassed the conference rooms and headed toward a private elevator she'd never used. "Mr. Harrington's instructions," the security officer replied without elaboration. Instead of the conference room, they led her to Liam's private elevator. It opened directly into his penthouse apartment, a space as elegant and austere as the man himself. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, now shrouded in rain and mist. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and blue created a cool, calming atmosphere, though Claire felt anything but calm. Liam stood by a wall of windows, watching rain streak across the glass. He'd discarded his tie, and his usual perfect composure seemed frayed at the edges. "They want someone to blame," he said without turning. "The board, the shareholders, the press. They need a sacrifice." Claire's throat tightened. "And that's me. That's what they think." Now he faced her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "They're wrong." He crossed the room with purpose, stopping closer to her than he ever had before. "I've spent weeks trying to keep my distance from you, trying to maintain the boundaries I've built around myself since." He broke off. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I won't let them destroy you for something you had no part in." "I don't understand." "The irregularities were discovered after the acquisition. I made the decision to handle them quietly. No one else knew, not even the board." His jaw tightened. "I should have trusted you with the truth." "Why didn't you?" "Because trusting you meant acknowledging what was happening. What I felt every time you walked into a room." His voice dropped lower. "What I still feel." The confession hung between them, transforming the space, transforming everything. "You've been cold, critical, almost cruel," Claire said, needing to understand. "If what you're saying is true, I thought distance would make it easier. I thought if you disliked me, if everyone saw me treating you harshly, no one would suspect." He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling its perfect order. "I've spent 5 years building walls around myself, Claire. Then you walked in and looked me in the eye, and I felt those walls begin to crack." Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating his face. No longer cold but alive with emotion. "I never hated you," he said quietly. "I was hiding from the one thing I swore I'd never feel again." Claire took a step closer, close enough to see the vulnerability beneath his carefully constructed armor. "And what was that?" His answer was barely audible, but it changed everything between them. "Hope. Have you ever discovered that someone's apparent dislike was actually masking deeper feelings? That what looked like contempt was really fear of connection, fear of vulnerability, fear of loss? If this resonates with you, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes the people who push us away the hardest are the ones most afraid of how much they want us to stay. The rain intensified, drumming against the windows as Claire tried to process Liam's revelation. The man standing before her, vulnerable, disheveled, eyes filled with an emotion she'd never seen there before, seemed like a stranger compared to the cold, controlled CEO she'd known for months. "I don't understand," she said finally. "Why would you push away something you wanted?" Liam turned back to the window, his silhouette stark against the stormy sky. 5 years ago, I lost someone. My fiancée, Rebecca. She was everything. Brilliant, compassionate, fearless. What happened? Cancer. Aggressive. 6 months from diagnosis to... He couldn't finish the sentence. After that, I made a decision. No attachments. No vulnerabilities. Just work. It was safer. And then I came along and ruined your perfect system? Claire asked, a hint of her usual directness returning. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. From the first interview, you reminded me of her not in looks, but in spirit. The way you wouldn't back down, wouldn't look away. He turned to face her again. I hired you because I couldn't not hire you. Then I tried to keep my distance by being difficult. That's one word for it, Claire said. But there was no anger in her voice. I thought if I was harsh enough, you'd maintain a professional distance. If I criticized you publicly, no one would suspect how I felt. If I made everyone believe I barely tolerated you." Liam shook his head. "It was a flawed strategy." "Spectacularly flawed," Claire agreed. "But that still doesn't explain why you kept me in the dark about the Meridian irregularities." Liam moved to a sleek cabinet and poured 2 glasses of water, handing one to Claire. The simple gesture felt strangely intimate after months of carefully maintained distance. "The irregularities were discovered 2 weeks after the acquisition was finalized," he explained. "Nothing criminal, but concerning enough that disclosure would have impacted shareholder confidence. I made the decision to address them internally, quietly. Without informing the board? The board would have panicked, demanded immediate disclosure, potentially tanking our stock price and the entire deal." His expression hardened. "I've spent 15 years building this company. I wasn't about to let it be damaged by problems we could fix without public drama. And now someone on the board, likely Jeffrey Winters, has leaked selective information to the press, painting the worst possible picture." Liam's jaw tightened. "And they're setting you up as the scapegoat." Claire set down her glass. "Why me? I knew nothing about these issues. Precisely why you're the perfect target. You crafted the communication strategy. You're new, expendable." His voice took on an edge. "And getting rid of you would hurt me without directly challenging my position." The implication hung in the air between them. Someone knew. Someone had seen through Liam's careful facade and recognized his feelings for Claire. "So what do we do now?" she asked. Liam checked his watch. "The board reconvenes in 40 minutes. They expect me to deliver your resignation and a statement accepting responsibility for communication oversights regarding Meridian. And if I refuse to resign, they'll fire you and potentially pursue legal action, claiming you knowingly misled shareholders." His blue eyes met hers. "Unless we give them something they want more than a scapegoat. Which is me, taking full responsibility. Admitting I made the decision to handle the irregularities internally without proper disclosure." Claire stared at him. "That could end your career. The board could remove you as CEO. They could try." A hint of the confident, powerful Liam Harrington returned to his expression. "But I still own 30% of the company, and I have the loyalty of key shareholders. It would be messy, but I'd survive. Why would you take that risk for me?" Liam stepped closer, close enough that Claire could see the faint stubble on his jaw, the tiny lines at the corners of his eyes that his perfect suits and intimidating demeanor usually distracted from. "Because I've spent 5 years hiding from life, Claire. 5 years building walls so high that nothing could touch me. Not loss, not pain, not hope." His voice softened. "Then you walked into my office and looked me directly in the eye, and for the first time since Rebecca died, I felt something crack inside me. Something I thought was long dead." Claire felt her heart racing. "And that terrified you?" "Completely." The admission came with a rueful smile. "So I did what terrified people often do. I pushed away the very thing I wanted most." The rain had stopped, sunlight breaking through the clouds to cast the penthouse in a warm glow. It felt symbolic somehow. Light after darkness, clarity after confusion. "We should get back," Claire said, though she made no move toward the elevator. "The board is waiting. Let them wait." Liam's gaze held hers. "I need to know, after everything, after how I've treated you these past months, is there any chance?" He didn't finish the question, but he didn't need to. Claire understood what he was asking. Was there any chance she could see beyond the cold facade to the man beneath? Any chance she could forgive the walls he'd built and the ways he'd pushed her away? "I don't know," she answered honestly. "What I do know is that I've never backed down from a challenge, Mr. Harrington. And you are certainly that." A genuine smile transformed his face, making him look younger, more approachable. "We should go face the board," he said, though he seemed reluctant to break the moment. Together. The board meeting was exactly as tense as Claire had anticipated. 14 stern faces around a massive table, Jeffrey Winters looking particularly smug at one end. Liam took his place at the head of the table, gesturing for Claire to sit at his right. A clear statement of support that didn't go unnoticed. "We've reviewed the situation," Winters began without preamble. "And the board's position is clear. Ms. Bennett's resignation, effective immediately, is the appropriate course of action. Her communication strategy regarding Meridian was, at best, negligently incomplete." "That's interesting," Liam replied, his voice deceptively calm. "Considering Ms. Bennett had no knowledge of the irregularities in question. Then she failed in her due diligence," another board member interjected. "No," Liam said firmly. "I failed in my transparency. The decision to handle the Meridian irregularities internally without disclosure was mine alone. Ms. Bennett crafted her strategy based on the information I chose to provide." A murmur ran through the room. This was clearly not the script the board had expected. "You're saying you deliberately withheld information from your own communications director?" Winters asked, unable to hide his surprise. "I'm saying I made a judgment call to address certain issues quietly rather than risk market overreaction." Liam's gaze swept the room. A judgment call that was working until someone in this room decided to leak selective information to the press. The accusation hung in the air. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. "The point remains," Winters pressed, "that shareholders were misled." "No," Claire spoke up for the first time. "Shareholders were told that the Meridian acquisition involved short-term challenges for long-term gain. That was true. The specific nature of those challenges wasn't detailed, but the existence of challenges was never hidden." Liam gave her a subtle nod of approval before continuing. "I've prepared a statement taking full responsibility for the decision to handle the irregularities internally. It will be released this afternoon, along with a complete accounting of the issues and the steps already taken to address them." "That's not what we agreed," Winters began. "I'm not asking for agreement," Liam cut him off. "I'm informing you of my decision as CEO. If the board wishes to challenge that decision, you're welcome to call a vote of no confidence." The threat was clear. Such a vote would be public, messy, and potentially damaging to the company's stock price. Exactly what the board wanted to avoid. After a tense silence, the chairman spoke. "Perhaps a brief recess is in order. Liam, may we speak privately?" As the other board members filed out, Liam turned to Claire. "Wait for me in my office. This won't take long." 45 minutes later, Liam returned to find Claire standing by his office window, gazing out at the city below. She turned as he entered, searching his expression for clues. "Well?" she asked. "The board has accepted my explanation and approved the release of a comprehensive statement about the Meridian situation." A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "They've also expressed their complete confidence in both the CEO and the communications director." Relief washed over Claire. "So it's over? This particular crisis, yes?" Liam moved to stand beside her at the window. "Though I suspect Jeffrey Winters will be looking for other opportunities to cause trouble. He's wanted my position for years." "He'll have to get in line," Claire said with a hint of her usual directness. "I'm not done challenging you yet." Liam's laugh was unexpected and genuine. "I'm counting on that, Ms. Bennett." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city bustle below. Finally, Claire asked the question that had been on her mind since their conversation in the penthouse. "Where do we go from here?" Liam turned to face her, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. "That depends on you. Professionally, nothing changes. You're still the communications director, and I'm still the CEO. Personally," he hesitated, "I'd like the chance to show you who I really am, beyond these walls and the persona I've hidden behind." "Dinner," Claire suggested. "Somewhere with no financial reports, no press releases, and no crisis management." "I'd like that." The smile that transformed his face made him look years younger. "Though I should warn you, I'm out of practice at normal human interaction." "I've noticed," Claire said dryly. "Fortunately, I'm very patient with difficult cases." The weeks that followed brought subtle but significant changes to Harrington and Company. The Meridian situation was addressed with transparency and confidence, actually strengthening the company's reputation for integrity. Jeffrey Winters resigned from the board, citing personal reasons that fooled no one. And the company's employees noticed a distinct shift in their CEO's demeanor, still demanding excellence, but with less frost and more genuine leadership. The most noticeable change, however, was in how Liam interacted with Claire. The public criticism gave way to professional respect. The cutting remarks were replaced by thoughtful feedback. And occasionally, just occasionally, employees would glimpse a moment of warmth between them that hinted at something beyond a professional relationship. "You've transformed him," Vivian remarked one evening as she and Claire worked late on a major presentation. "I've known Liam for years, but I've never seen him like this." "I didn't transform anyone," Claire replied. "He's still the same person, just without the walls." "Not entirely without walls," Vivian corrected with a knowing smile. "But they're coming down brick by brick. That's more than any of us thought possible after Rebecca." 6 months after the Meridian crisis, Claire found herself once again in Liam's penthouse, this time for a small dinner party celebrating the company's most successful quarter in its history. As the other executives mingled, Liam drew her out onto the terrace, the city lights sparkling below them. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small blue folder identical to the one he'd given her on her first day. Claire raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" "Open it." Inside was a single sheet of paper, not financial projections or confidential information, but a handwritten letter. Claire read it in the soft light from the penthouse windows, her heart beating faster with each line. "Claire," it began, "when you first walked into my office, I was a man hiding from life, using work as a shield against feeling anything real. I thought I was protecting myself from pain by avoiding connection. What I didn't understand was that in avoiding pain, I was also avoiding everything that makes life worth living. You looked me in the eye when everyone else looked away. You stood your ground when I tried to push you away. You saw through the walls I built and had the courage to wait while I found the courage to lower them. I once told you I never hated you, that I was hiding from hope. What I didn't tell you then, but I'm telling you now, is that you brought that hope back into my life. For that, and for so much more, I will always be grateful. With love, Liam." Claire looked up from the letter to find Liam watching her, vulnerability and strength equally present in his gaze. "I meant every word," he said quietly. Claire carefully folded the letter and returned it to the blue folder. "You know, for a communications expert, I'm finding myself at a loss for words." "That's a first," Liam teased gently. "There's a first time for everything," Claire replied, stepping closer to him, "including this." When their lips met, it felt like the culmination of a journey that had begun the moment she first looked him in the eye. A journey from misconception to understanding, from walls to openness, from fear to hope. Later that evening, as the party wound down and the last guests departed, Claire and Liam stood together by the windows that had once been his solitary refuge. "Do you know what today is?" he asked, his arm around her waist. Claire thought for a moment. "The end of the quarter? It's exactly 1 year since you walked into my office and refused to be intimidated by the Iceman." His smile held a hint of self-deprecation. "1 year since you started melting those walls I thought would protect me forever." "They served their purpose," Claire said softly. "They protected you until you were ready to live again. They almost cost me you." "Almost," she agreed, leaning into his embrace. "But I'm not easily discouraged, Mr. Harrington, especially by difficult men who only pretend to hate me." His laughter echoed through the penthouse, warm, genuine, and free from the constraints he'd lived under for so long. It was the sound of a man who had found his way back to hope, back to life, back to love. And it all began with a look, one person seeing beyond the facade to the truth beneath. If the story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever misjudged someone only to discover their true feelings were completely different than you thought? Or has someone's cold exterior masked deeper emotions that surprised you when finally revealed? Remember that sometimes the walls people build aren't meant to keep you out. They're built to protect what's most vulnerable within. And the greatest act of courage isn't tearing down someone else's walls, but patiently waiting while they find the strength to lower them themselves. Until next time, this is Mr. Harrison reminding you that the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us of our capacity to change, to heal, and to hope again.